John was going through what we call a high conflict divorce from his wife. There were 2 children involved, and she took the children and went to another state, and then began a pattern and a series of alienation tactics to alienate the children from him. It was the worst parental alienation case I've ever had, and I've had cases in 12 or 13 states. The children were being hostile toward him. They'd never been that way before. And she did pretty much everything she could to try to drive a wedge between the children and their father. And when the divorce started, several months after it started, there was what was called a temporary hearing. John was given custody of the kids at that hearing. She immediately started calling Child Protective Services in Idaho and North Dakota, and for the first time started saying he had sexually abused his children. So that's what she would do. Not so much I'm going to kill you or do something, but she would take those kinds of actions to try to manipulate it. But John had passed a polygraph test. He had gone through a psychosexual evaluation. He had done everything he could to show that none of that happened. And no court ever found that he had ever sexually abused the children. He was never charged with a crime. I mean, he was completely cleared. His case went on for almost 3 years. Ultimately, joint custody was awarded, and even though the children were supposed to primarily live with her, on the day John died, she was with her father all day long. She tried to file for a restraining order against John that day, which was denied. So she was with her father all day long leading up to this. The exchange was to take place at 6 p.m. He went to get the children for his first visitation, and he set up to where the visitation exchange would be in the parking lot of a grocery store, which was a very public place. There were cameras, at the grocery store, and he thought that would be safe. And when he saw his ex-wife's vehicle pull through the parking lot, he began to get the back seat of his car ready so that he could put the children in there. And he heard a male's voice say, "Hi, John." And he turned around, and it was actually his ex-father-in-law. So it was his ex-wife's father. And he had a gun and was pointing it at him. And he shot him once in the chest. And as John turned to run, he shot him twice more in the back. And he died a short time later. I think John felt like he was taking appropriate precautions to have that meeting in the parking lot. He was immediately arrested and was immediately put in jail. She has the children. John's obviously gone, so the children stayed with her. CPS, which is Child Protective Services, came in and interviewed the children. And right after this happened, to make sure that they were in a safe home, they interviewed them for 2 or 3 hours, quite a long time. And the children stayed there. So I don't know the results of those interviews. It's hard for me, this is just my opinion, it's hard for me to think that they didn't discuss something when they were together all day long. He showed up in her vehicle, and then she showed up with the children a few minutes later in his vehicle. When she took the children and left the state and went to Idaho, she went to live with her father and mother. So she was in that house for almost 3 years before this happened. So they were all very tight. And that's another reason that you have to wonder, when she says she knew nothing about what her father was going to go do, you have to wonder about that. The John Mast Foundation was put together by John's family, and we're trying to support parents that are going through parental alienation, and we're also trying to work with visitation centers to try to make visitation exchanges safer. We don't want John's death to be in vain. We want it to mean something, and we don't want his story to end. It's hard. One of the things we've talked about is maybe having a visitation exchange center where one parent will bring the children first, drop them off, and then leave. And then 20 to 30 minutes later, the other parent that's picking up the children will come to the visitation center and pick the children up while the other parent's not there. Because the problem you have in some of these high conflict cases is the more you put these people together, when there's this friction, there's more of a chance for violence. And that's what happened with John. Many times the mom will have a new boyfriend, and she'll tell the new boyfriend that the ex was abusive to her when that wasn't true, and so now the new boyfriend feels like he needs to be a protector. And so we've seen in the last 2 or 3 years where a new boyfriend in the picture will shoot the father at a visitation exchange, which someone like that should never be at the visitation exchange to begin with. It has been on the rise in the United States, and where there have been fatalities and other violence at these exchanges. It's a growing problem. John did everything right. He got accused of this, this terrible thing, and he did everything he could and showed that it didn't happen. He followed the court's orders. He did everything he was supposed to do, and he still lost his life. And so we've got to do something to make visitation exchanges safer, and especially for a father or a mother that's doing everything right and just wants to see their children. That should not be a high conflict, violent exchange, and we've got to figure out a way to make that safer.